Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon Geeky Sparkles sitting this video out. So we're going to talk about video games. We're going to talk about the director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth saying that Japanese developers now create with a global audience in mind from the very start. And he apparently confirms games are subjected to thorough ethical reviews tailored to different regions. This is coming from Spencer Bakuli on Bounding in the Comics. So we're going to take a look at this. And this actually tracks because Square's been making some pretty questionable decisions lately, I think, with censorship and with going back and altering older titles to, I guess, make the modern audience happy, to make California Square employees happy. But they've been bleeding out a lot of money, too. Square's been hemorrhaging cash. And look, this is not the same company it was 20 plus years ago. Square-Enix is not Squaresoft, RIP. They definitely changed once the merger happened, and definitely in the last 10 years they've changed quite a bit. So we're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, check out our Substack, clownfishtv.substack.com. If you're not getting notified of our videos, and sometimes YouTube does not notify people of videos when they drop, go to Substack, sign up, and you'll get notified every time we post a video. Link there, you'll get an email about it. So thank you so much for that. This is coming from Bounding in the Comics, and it's funny because I just yesterday was talking about Vagrant Story, and that's a very, very, very good Squaresoft title that has been kind of lost to the sands of time. One of my favorite RPGs, actually, of the 90s. Or was it 90s or 2000? Maybe it came out in 2000. I think it was like the Summer of Adventure or whatever. But it was fantastic. And I was kind of like, is that actually part of Final Fantasy? Because it took place in Ivalice, which was Final Fantasy 12 setting and tactics setting. But, whatever. I'd like to see it remastered, but if they remastered it, they'd probably nerf it, because that's the thing that Square keeps doing. So let's check this out. According to Bounding in the Comics, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director is Naoki Hamaguchi. Naoki Hamaguchi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Don't worry, I'm sure everybody in the comments will tell me if I'm not. The evolution of video games from a niche hobby into a worldwide industry has resulted in Japanese developers shifting their design priorities away from the sensibilities of their local markets and toward those of the larger global audience. The global audience. This would probably explain the censorship, probably explain, I know a lot of the older games, they've gone back and censored stuff. I mean, a lot of it's minor. I mean, some of this, I'm going to be honest. I mean, some of the stuff they censored in like Final Fantasy VIII, I was thinking like Siren. I mean, it's kind of weird that like Siren was fine as a PG-13 game in 1998, 99. I guess it was 99. But then like it's too offensive, so they have to like cover her up more now, but they've been censoring games. Like they've been censoring games for a long time. They used to do it under Nintendo. Like a lot of those, games were censored quite a bit, and we didn't know any better. Hamaguchi, who was promoted from his role as the co-director of Remake to the director of the trilogy's remaining entries, following the original Final Fantasy VII creator Tetsuo Nomura's decision to take a more relaxed position in the series production, provided this insight into his home nation's current approach to game development while speaking to the official Sony blog following Rebirth's recent Grand Award win at the 2024 Japan Asia PlayStation Partner Awards. So in my opinion, this is where Sony came off the rails. They started letting the West dictate their content. I mean, they always had Western games on PlayStation, but some of the best games, most of the best games, at least early on, were Japanese games designed primarily for a Japanese audience that Americans just also happen to like. And they do have a new CEO. And I am kind of wondering if they're not going to try to resuscitate the Japaniness, I guess, of their games. That would be great, right? Japaniness. I just made that word up. Yeah, so asked by the host, what factors do you consider when designing a game for a global audience? He said there are so many elements that go into game development, from the story to every little detail in the game's presentation. Okay, we conduct thorough ethical reviews tailored to different regions. taking the time and resources to ensure our work doesn't become a source of negativity for anyone is essential in today's world. A lot of Japanese developers are kind of taking this approach, and I know like Capcom, I think, was too. And I mean, it makes sense to a degree. You don't want to do something that's going to offend the majority of your market. But the flip side of that is the people that they're listening to, I believe, are the wrong people. I think this is where these sensitivity readers and these cultural DEI people that I don't even know what their positions are because they just make this shit up on the fly, they get embedded into the process, right? They probably tell the Japanese studios, well, this will offend people because of whatever talking point this week. And you don't want to offend people, do you? I think this is what happens with anime too. And I think the studios, or at least the anime studios, are catching on because they're kind of cutting out the translators, and they're like, no, we'll just use AI. We'll do it ourselves. We'll put it out there. We'll do it ourselves. And I get it. I mean, if you're dropping hundreds of millions of dollars on a game, you don't want it to be a freaking disaster. But I'm also like, you guys have lost so much money. You've lost so much money over the last couple of years, probably in part from listening to the West, right? Because people love Squaresoft games. They love those games. They love the Japanese RPGs. And all you got to do is give people more of that, right? Go back, maybe smaller teams, more streamlined production, lower budget games, but good, solid games. You've got so much IP you're sitting on, you're not doing anything with. Threads of Fate, Vagrant Story, Front Mission. I guess they had remakes, but Square didn't do them. You know, there's a lot of things that your Valkyrie Profile. Have they done anything with that? That was on the Enix side of things. Have they done anything with that lately? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that they could be doing. And what I loved about Squaresoft back in the day was they usually churned out like at least 2, 3, 4 good JRPGs per year. And a lot of them were at the time new IP. And they don't do that anymore. They're just like, oh yeah, let's just release Final Fantasy I for like the 45th time, but now with even better graphics and a really shitty font. So this is what's kind of irritating. He said back when the original Final Fantasy VII was released, it was primarily created for the Japanese market, and its global reach expanded as it gained recognition. That is true. There was actually discussion when and I remember because I read all the video game magazines back in the day, but like there's discussion as to whether or not Final Fantasy VII was even going to come to the United States because Final Fantasy was very hit or miss. We had the first game and it came over here a few years late, and they skipped 2 and 3 because they thought they're too hard and too much like the first one. And then 4 came out. Well, it was easy type, but 4 came out over here as 2. And then we skipped 5. And then 6 came out over here as 3. And they were actually like, well, if they bring this out in the States, is it going to be 4? Is it going to be Final Fantasy 4? Or are we just not going to bring it out at all? And shockingly, and this is why really I think Sony got a lot of street cred from gamers, they did bring it out. They left the numbering intact, which got a lot of people wondering, like, wait, how did we miss so many Final Fantasy games? What the hell is going on here? And as far as I know, it really wasn't censored, right? I mean, the translation was shit. On the original PS1 translation was not great. You kind of had to fill in the blanks in the story because it's like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. But we got that game pretty much intact. And that was created mostly for a Japanese market. And then that kind of set the precedent, right? And then we started getting a whole bunch of other games that were not censored, and they came over here intact, and Sony would do that and Nintendo would not do that. And then we started to feel like, oh my God, we've been lied to for decades. Like all these great games are in Japan, or the versions we've gotten were really shitty versions of better games. And for Square to say that they are going to consider now the global audience, it's like you're basically self-censoring. And that's not what people want. They want those Japanese style games, right? Sony, American players, Western players want Japanese style games. We tried it the other way with California calling all the shots, and it sucked. And we're seeing all these AAA studios implode. And I think it would be incredibly stupid of you to stop creating games that feel authentic to what Squaresoft was. But again, it's not the same company. It hasn't been for a very long time. Let's just shit out 15 more Kingdom Hearts reissues and whatever. They went on to say, but today, rather than prioritizing the Japanese market and letting the game's reach grow organically, we now create with a global audience in mind from the very beginning. We are in a completely different era. It is very clear. It is very clear you're in a different era. Not era. As Japanese creators, we naturally develop the game in Japanese first before translating it. He added, during localization, we sometimes adjust phrasing to better fit different cultural contexts. That would be your sensitivity readers and your DEI consultants, your sweet baby inks get in there. However, this is a delicate process. Players who have a deep respect and strong feelings for the original often notice even the slightest difference between the Japanese and translated versions and ask why certain changes were made. Yes, because we don't trust our own country to bring these things over intact. Because we've seen time and time again that we get activists in the translation scene, the localization scene, and they embellish. And it's aggravating because we got a taste of what it's like to get straight from the tap in Japan, and now you're walking it back, and people don't like it. It's a challenge we constantly navigate in game creation. To this end, when asked if he had advice for fledgling video game designers, Hamaguchi asserted, "I strongly encourage them to step out into the world and continue generating new ideas. It's important not to limit your perspective to the values or market of your own country. Maintaining a broad perspective will become more crucial for creativity in the generations to come." Yeah, let's just make everything as bland as possible so we don't offend anybody in any country. And let's stop making games that appeal to Japanese audiences because, we don't want to offend people in Portland, right? While it's ideal to travel and experience the world firsthand, we are fortunate to live in an era where content and entertainment are so easily accessible. There are countless opportunities to broaden your perspective and absorb new ideas. Always set your sights on competing on a global stage, and I hope that together we can contribute to the growth and expansion of Japan's entertainment worldwide. What's the point? If it's not going to be Japanese entertainment because it's going to be bland so it doesn't offend anybody anywhere, what's the point? Just make it anywhere, right? I mean, yeah, so Squaresoft is dead, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I think they put some good stuff out here and there. I did play Remake. I did not play Rebirth yet. I've heard pretty good things about it, to be honest. I have, but this is a kind of a disappointing thing to hear because I just think we're going to see more. If that's the mindset at Square currently, we're going to get more misfires. I mean, these were games, Avengers and Tomb Raider and all that companies they acquired that they were trying to appeal to the West, and they mismanaged the IP. They lost hundreds of millions of dollars, and Square just needs to go back to being Square. Just make Japanese games, and the global audience will buy them, right? I mean, I think back to that early era of PlayStation 1, and like literally almost every game that Square brought out in Japan, they also brought out here in the US. I mean, like to Ball Number 1, like that never would have come out. That never would have come out in the 80s or 90s, early 90s. But because of Sony, because of players, American players being receptive to Japanese entertainment, authentic Japanese entertainment, we got pretty much everything, right? And I just don't want to see them lose that, but I think they're going to. Good luck with that, because if you're not giving people what they want, other studios will give it to them. So I'm gonna wrap this up, guys. Thank you very much. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.